Poor Waitress treated a homeless man to a cafe. The next day he came back in a suit, declaring, "I own this place." Morning dawned lightly over Portland, Oregon. In a light dusting of snow, the sky was pale, the air crisp and dry. A cold wind drove flakes across the windows of a small cafe between two brick buildings. On the door, pocket, a wooden sign creaked in the wind, maple and steam creaking softly in the breeze. Inside, the atmosphere was jarringly different. Heat emanated from an electric fireplace nestled in the corner. The rich smoothness of jazz piano drifted from the speakers. The aroma of coffee and pastries hung in the air, encircling diners like an old friend. The establishment wasn't sleek, but it was real, warm, homey. Elena stepped back behind the counter with habitual ease. She'd worked the morning shift for more than 2 years at 25. Her blonde curls were drawn back high on her head with a faded blue ribbon. A pale cream sweater poked out from under her apron pocket, and around her neck a tiny necklace wore a silver musical note, her mother's final gift. Her smile was warm, but contained a hushed fatigue, not the type bred of lost sleep, but of burdened longings. Elena had been orphaned at 17 and now lived with her failing grandmother, who received dialysis 3 times a week. She had studied piano and music theory once, but dropped out of school when the bills became too expensive. Her life ever since had been survival, bills, shifts, caregiving, and yet she bore it well. Elena wiped down tables, filled mugs, smiled softly. One of the regulars nodded at her. She nodded back without hesitation, and then the door slammed open. A blast of wind blew in, blowing napkins and taking the heat out of the room. Everyone looked around. A man stood in the doorway. His coat was tattered, sleeves unraveling, his boots sopping and cracked. Snow clung to his beard and cap. His red, chapped hands trembled as he pressed them together for warmth. He didn't speak. He just stood there, taking in the space like he'd forgotten what warmth felt like. Before he could step further, Jace, 20 years old and always on edge, rushed over from the counter. "Sir," he said sharply, loud enough to turn heads. "This isn't a shelter. You're not just going to come in here and get warm." The cafe became uncomfortably silent. Silently, everyone avoided the man. A couple of customers looked down at their computers. Silently, the air was charged with anticipation. Elena broke her gaze from the espresso machine. Silently, as she walked over and put a firm hand on Jace's shoulder. "We have tables available," she said, her voice calm but unmistakable. "He's just cold." Jace paused, obviously annoyed, but stepped back with a shake of his head. Elena stood and addressed the man. "There's a table near the heater. It's warm there." He stared at her in confusion. After a moment, he nodded slightly and moved in the direction of the other corner slowly. Elena returned to the counter, refilled a cup of coffee, and chose a warm blueberry muffin from the pastry case. She put them on a tray and brought them to the table. The man blinked at the gift. "I didn't order anything," he said, his voice dry and low. I don't have money." "It's on me," Elena said. "Just drink it while it's hot." He stared at the cup as though it would disappear. He wrapped both hands around it cautiously, eyes closing for a moment as the warmth permeated his skin. He opened his eyes, emotion dancing across his face. "Thank you," he whispered. Elena smiled, then turned back to her work, saying nothing further. The man did not know her name. She did not know his, but his name was Caleb. And although Elena did not realize it at the time, her small action would alter both of their lives. He sat there, slumped shoulders, holding on to the mug as if it were the sole warm thing in the world. Across the room, an older woman saw. She observed Elena pass by and smiled quietly, knowingly. Elena smiled in return before continuing on. She did not look back, didn't hesitate. To her it was merely a cup of coffee, mere one act of humanity. But the silver note lying at her collarbone glimmered dimly in the cafe's warm lighting, as if it too could feel that something new had been initiated. Pocket late morning gave way to early afternoon, and the hum of maple and steam mellowed. The breakfast crowd had thinned, leaving behind a few ragged patrons, a couple by the window. Pocket, 2 students deep in textbooks, and the man in the corner. He had not moved much since Elena had served him. His coat still had damp stains, but his hands had become somewhat colored. The half-empty coffee cup rested on his palms. He had not requested refills, he had not uttered another word. Elena glanced at him passing, between refills, between wiped-down tables. Pocket, not with pity, but with understanding silence. The kind that results from understanding how quickly life could fall apart. Her phone rang in her apron. She moved into the back to answer it. "Pocket, Miss Elena," spoke a nurse's voice. "Your grandmother just completed her dialysis. She's doing fine, just a little weaker than she normally is today." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. "Pocket." "Thank you," she replied. "I'll come by after my work." She hung up and wrapped her scarf tighter. It was an old woolen one that had a weak lavender smell to it. Her mother's. Pocket, it would once bring comfort. Now it was protection. Back on the floor, Elena walked towards the table by the heater. The man was still seated, still quiet, eyes on the curling steam rising off his cup. There was a serenity to him now, something taken back. She grabbed a plate in reach, but his tone halted her. It was gnarled, unpracticed. "Pocket, you're the first one," he spoke haltingly, "who gazed at me as a human being. Not an issue." She spun around, taken aback by the gentleness behind his tone. "I just think," she said, "that everyone should have a morning that's not horrid." He nodded slightly. "I used to own a place like this. Not exactly the same, but close." She blinked, fascinated. But the counter bell rang. A person waited for their cappuccino. "Excuse me," she said, and departed. Pocket, she failed to recognize how his eyes focused on her, as though he was attempting to recall something he once knew. Moments later, a voice cut across the soft jazz. "Pocket, is this what this place has become?" A suit-clad man stood by the window, one hand still resting on his laptop. His voice was crisp, theatrical. "I bring customers here," he said, waving toward the corner. "And now you're letting vagrants hang around." Elena strode over, towel in hand. "He ordered coffee," she said matter-of-factly. "He's sitting quietly." Pocket, disturbing no one. The man sneered. "This is why establishments like this lose customers. You invite them in and the rest of us out." Elena did not flinch. "We're not losing anyone," she said. "You're welcome to stay or go." He bristled, picked up his briefcase, and stormed out. The resulting silence was short. The students looked over. The couple shared a look. Then the jazz continued. The corner man observed Elena as she went by. He did not thank her. He did not have to. Eventually, he got up to leave, still rigid, but slightly more stable. Elena worked behind the counter. He didn't disturb her. Instead, he carefully folded a napkin and set it by his mug. Later, when Jace cleared the table, Pocket, he picked it up as a first item. "Strange," he said. "It's such as art." He gave it to Elena. On the napkin was a steaming cup of coffee. Pocket. Off the steam rose a single musical note, under it in tidy, careful handwriting were the words, "Not everyone who plays music has an instrument, but you." Pocket. "You are music." Elena looked at it for a long time. She folded the napkin quietly and slid it into the pocket of her apron. She did not know his name, but something within her. Pocket, a small, quiet place that had been silent for years, had just started to hum. It was Tuesday morning, and the snow had at last ceased to fall. Outside, Pocket, the city sparkled under a pale winter sun, the sidewalks glittering where salt had dissolved the ice, and the storefronts shone beneath a soft blue sky. Inside Maple and Steam, the commotion had returned. Regulars were back, early risers and laptop users, retirees with crossword books, the couple who always quietly argued over bagel toppings. Pocket. The scent of espresso was in the air, combining with cinnamon roll sweetness fresh from the oven. Elena glided through it all unerringly, like a quiet beat that lay beneath the din. She smiled as she poured lattes, cleaned counters, and called out orders. Her hair was braided as always in the same gentle curl and the same blue ribbon pocket, although today a few strands had come loose, framing her cheeks. Her left hand sometimes circled her right wrist, weary from consecutive days of shifts, but she retained smiling. Pocket, the bell ringing above the entrance, chimed. Heads turned not because it was habit, but because instinct told them that someone had just entered who wasn't a part of the standard background sounds of the cafe. He was tall, clean-shaven, with a charcoal gray suit that hugged perfectly down his shoulders. His coat was buttoned, his shoes buffed. His presence was felt to be purposeful, not flashy, not boisterous, but undeniable. Jace, his eyes never lifting from the espresso machine, unless a tip was on the line, almost stumbled over his own feet. "Good morning, sir," he declared, his voice eager. "Pocket. We have a fabulous table by the fireplace if you'd care to sit. Extremely cozy." The man did not immediately answer. His gaze swept the room. They fixed on Elena at last. Pocket. She had just turned away from the counter with a tray in her grasp when she saw him and stopped. Her grip on the handle of the tray tightened, her breath in her chest. For a moment, it was as if the world rocked gently on its axis. It was him, the man from 3 mornings earlier, the one with the frayed coat and snow on his beard. Pocket. The one who clutched cup of coffee like it was life itself. The fellow who left a napkin behind with music scribbled out in steam. He didn't look anything like he did then, but it was him. Pocket. The man moved forward ahead of Jace and came to stand at the counter. He gazed at Elena, his face calm and steady, as if only he had known this moment would arrive. "My name is Caleb Montgomery," he declared firmly. "As of this morning, I've executed the purchase of this cafe." He hesitated, then continued with soft finality. "Pocket, I'm Maple and Steam's new owner." Quiet. Fork suspended in midair. Laptop fell silent. Even the milk steamer hissed itself quiet. Jace blinked. His mouth opened. Pocket then closed once more like a goldfish in a pricey fish tank. Elena did not move, the tray in her hand shaking ever so gently. Her mind crashed, bounced around inside of her like hail on a window. She felt every face in the cafe turn to her, and yet all she could see was Caleb. His hair was styled neatly now, his face shaved. Pocket, but the eyes, those were the same, considerate, exhausted, and thankful. "I owe you a coffee," he told her, tone gentler now, "and a thank you." She didn't say anything. Pocket couldn't say anything. Her lips parted, but nothing emerged. The napkin remained folded within her coat pocket, pressed against her chest. She could sense it now. Pocket, as though it had warmed up somehow from sunrise. Caleb did not prod. He merely nodded once and turned to sit at the table by the fire, the same one where he had sat only days earlier. Pocket, but not this time as a stranger, pleading for heat. Elena remained motionless behind the counter, observing him lower himself into the chair. Her hair ribbon quivered slightly as she breathed out, still unsure if she had just entered a dream or exited of one. When the last customer had departed, Pocket, and the chairs had been flipped onto tables, Elena cleaned down the counter, looking at the clock. She was late, her grandmother would be waiting. Caleb had been stacking chairs quietly when he spoke, low but audible. "If you're not in a hurry, would you join me just for one moment at the old table?" Elena hesitated. She regarded him clean-cut now, properly dressed, but still bearing a heaviness in his eyes that didn't originate in his attire. A beat later, she nodded curtly. Pocket, they sat facing each other in the same corner, where he'd once held a steaming cup with shaking hands. The rumble of the city outside receded. Within, it was still. "I never properly thanked you," Caleb said. "Not simply the coffee, but because you looked at me like I counted." "You did, Elena," she spoke quietly. Caleb smiled faintly, then breathed in deeply. My name is Caleb Montgomery. I did financial analysis, investments, strategy. I was successful by the world's measure, Pocket. But the thing I loved most wasn't the work. It was coming home. He unzipped his overcoat and dug into the pocket for a faded photograph. It was of a smiling woman with soft eyes, arms around a laughing little girl in a pink dress. My wife Grace was a music teacher. Our daughter Amelia was 6. She was already writing songs. The world was full then. Loud, chaotic, but bright. He stopped. I was in Chicago for a conference when it occurred. Rain, red light, drunk driver. Elena's breath stopped. They were gone before I even touched down. He didn't cry, but the way he held the photo, gentle, respectful, told more than tears could. I drove for a while longer. Then I pulled over. The house was too deaf, the world too loud. Pocket. I got rid of everything, vanished. Not because I lost everything, but because I no longer cared to retain anything. I wandered for 3 years, he explained. City to city, cafe to cafe, Pocket. I didn't seek help, I don't know, searching for a sign that I hadn't vanished at all. He gazed at her, eyes stable now. Until you. Alina said nothing. Pocket, her fingers slightly cupped around the edge of the table. Then Caleb pulled out of his wallet and smoothed a crumpled little piece of paper. It was a drawing made by a child, Pocket, worn but colorful. A scroll made by a little girl depicted a blonde-haired woman wearing a music note-shaped necklace passing a cup of coffee to a bearded man wearing a knit hat. Pocket. She drew this several weeks before the accident. He murmured. I never knew why. We didn't know anyone who resembled that. I just thought it was fancy. He glanced at Alina once more. But then I saw you on that day, and I felt as if I'd entered her drawing. Alina brought a hand to her mouth. Her eyes sparkled. She gazed down at the necklace against her collarbone. Same musical note. There were no words, only a thudding inside her chest. Not fear, not sadness, something ancient, something holy. Caleb pushed back his chair, Pocket folding the paper delicately. I didn't open this cafe to prove anything, he told me. Not to the world and not to myself, Pocket. I opened it because this is the only place in years that I felt human once more, where someone looked at me and did not look away. He paused. I wanted to be that sort of space for others as well. Alina sat quietly, hands in her lap, her heart a quiet ache. The wind picked up outside. Inside the room was heavy, not with noise, but with something truer. Pocket, she had no idea what was coming. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't scared to see. The cafe was still again the following morning. But this time not due to a snowstorm or dozy customers. The front windows were braced with brown paper. A ladder stood against the wall where the steam sign, an old maple, was to be removed. Pocket sawdust drifted in the sunbeams inside, and the aroma of freshly painted walls blended faintly with the ghost of espresso. Elena entered cautiously. She had been told by Caleb to send a message the previous evening. Just a casual invitation. Would you visit the cafe tomorrow? I have something I'd like to show you. He was already there, Pocket, dressed less formally than before. Jeans, rolled up sleeves, and a flannel shirt. A tape measure dangled from his pocket and his jacket lay draped over a chair. It was the first time she had seen him without the acuteness of suit. And there was something about him that made him appear younger. Less like a man who had endured unimaginable loss. More like someone attempting to rebuild. He smiled when he saw her. Thanks for coming. Alina nodded. Her hands were in the pockets of her coat, clenched around the lining. Pocket, I've been thinking a lot about this place. Caleb started, waving around the room and about what it might be. He walked at a slow pace as he talked, as if he painted it in the air with words. This cafe, it rescued me. Or perhaps you rescued me. But either way, Pocket, I want it to be more than a business. He turned to her. I want it to be a community cafe, a place for individuals who've been lost, forgotten, or written off. A place to touch down while they find their feet again. Training, fair wage, respect, no strings. He breathed in, and I want you to handle it. Elena blinked. Pocket, the words hovered there like steam on a cup, both attracting and daunting. She began and then hesitated. Her heart was racing too quickly. "I'm not qualified," she said finally. Pocket shaking her head. "I don't have a degree. I've never managed anything. I don't know the ins and outs of payroll. I don't even have health coverage." Caleb didn't batter. His tone was firm. "Elena, I didn't select you because of a resume. I selected you because when you looked at a person, nobody else did." "You didn't batter either." She turned away. "Pocket, you looked at me that first morning as if I counted. Not as a project, not as a burden, just like a human being." Elena clamped her lips together. Pocket then smoothed her hand down the front of her apron, as if attempting to erase something. Nerves, uncertainty, the flush beginning to rise in her chest. "Pocket, I can't be who you think I am," she breathed. Caleb smiled kindly. "You already are," but she didn't respond. Couldn't. Pocket, her feet were already heading for the door. "I'd better leave," she muttered. "My grandmother's dialysis took longer than expected. I left her soup on the stove." She didn't even glance back. The door closed behind her with a softness that was heavier than a slam. That night the sun had set and a chill returned to the air. Elena slipped back into the cafe unseen, not to chat, not to rethink, just to go back for the wallet she had forgotten in the coat room. The lights within were low. Pocket and the odor of new varnish persisted. Stepping in, her gaze went to the table by the fireplace, the same one from earlier, where everything had changed and begun. There for her, Pocket, was a little cupcake. On its surface, delicately perched in the frosting, was a miniature chocolate in the form of a music note. Next to it was a crumpled piece of paper, scribbled in firm, deliberate lines, in honor of the one who preserved music in her soul. Even when life attempted to mute it, Elena gazed at it frozen. Then she smiled slightly. The type of smile that creeps up behind sorrow and taps it on the shoulder gently. She didn't consume the cupcake, but she picked up the note and she didn't discard it. Pocket, it was around late afternoon when the envelope came. Thick, cream-colored, with her name in dark blue ink. Careful and unmistakably personal. Elena stood by the kitchen window, Pocket still in her frayed cafe apron, the scent of lentil soup on the stove behind her. Her fingers shook ever so slightly as she unfastened the flap. Within, a creased piece of music, Pocket. At the top, in precise block letters, was the title, The Kind Cup Sonata. Below it, one-page handwritten note. "I do not know if you play anymore, but if your hands remember this for them." Pocket, for the hands that put a cup in front of me and reminded me I still had one. Caleb. She sat for a long time with the note, then touched her fingers lightly over the lines of the music. Pocket chords and melodies she'd never seen, but somehow knew in their purpose, warm, withheld, holding back. Her coat was already resting on her shoulders before she realized she was in motion. Pocket. The cafe was still in the process of renovation when she got there. The front sign had been removed, only wood scaffolding remaining. Pocket and the shadowy remnant of the original name against the brick. Tables had been pushed to one side, paint cans half full, brushes left to soak in jars. But in the corner of the room, behind a dropcloth, was the old upright piano. Elena moved toward it as if drawn by gravity. She opened it carefully, her fingers sweeping the dust from the keys. The bench creaked familiarly under her weight. She spread out the sonata and placed it in position. Pocket, then she sat there regarding the sheet until her breathing grew slow and her fingers settled. The first note was hesitant, soft, then another, then a full chord, low and minor. Pocket, it was not a great piece, not full of flourishes or flashy passages, but it flowed like breath, rising, falling, trembling, just enough to be real. As she played, something started to shift within her. Not break, not shatter, but unfold. She hadn't played a piano in over 6 years, and yet her fingers remembered the warm glow of a G major chord. Pocket, the sweetness of held E. The silences were quieter than any melody could ever be. Each bar was an exchange between who she had been and who she was now. In mid-second page, Pocket, she didn't even see the man in overalls standing patiently at the cafe door, hammer in hand. Mid-step paused. The new signature, whatever it might be, could wait. Pocket. When the final notes sang out, vibrating just above the thrum of the city beyond the window, Elena relaxed her hands into her lap. Her shoulders trembled. Pocket. One tear rolled down her cheek and fell on the A key. She did not brush it away. It was not sorrow. It was release. The kind only music provided. Pocket. The kind that did not require explanation or permission. Elena gazed down at her hands. The same hands that had filled a cup of coffee for a stranger. Pocket. The same hands that had hauled groceries up 3 flights of stairs for her grandmother. The same hands that had kept silence far too long. Now they played once more. Pocket. And when the light faded over the room, etching golden strokes over the piano's cracked lacquer, she whispered, not to anyone in particular, "I still remember." And somewhere, she thought, perhaps that was enough to start. A month passed, and the paper fell from the windows, painted anew in pale cream and forest green. The cafe reopened under a new name carved in wood above the doorway. The Kind Cup. Below that, a small brass plate said, "Serving coffee and compassion." 1 cup, 1 person. Pocket, 1 moment at a time. Inside, beneath the bones of the cafe, it all remained. Mismatched chairs, soft jazz playing in the background, but the air was warmer, as if it recalled kindness. Elena stood behind the counter, no longer in a borrowed apron, but a navy blue uniform she'd selected herself. Close to collar, 1 stitched music note, her blonde hair, Pocket always tied with a sky blue ribbon, flashed when she moved. She fit. Not because things had become easy. Her grandma still had dialysis and bills kept coming. Pocket, but something within her had stabilized. It had ceased to wait for everything to fall down. It had started to take hold. In the corner by the fireplace, Caleb had constructed the wish wall. Pocket was a corkboard bordered by reclaimed wood, stuffed between the shelf and the heater. On a table below, a tin of colored pins lay next to note cards and markers. Pocket and Elena had created the instructions herself. Write a wish, a hope, a dream. Big or small, we'll hold it for you. The wall filled rapidly. I want to complete my GED. Pocket, I want my mother to forgive me. I want to adopt a dog and give him the name Pancake. One afternoon, Elena saw a card crumpled shilly in the corner. The writing was tiny and uncertain. Pocket, I wish I could recall the lullaby my mother used to sing. I only know the way it made me feel. She gazed at it for a long time. The next morning, the guest came back and stood still. Their wish had come true. Above the note, in a plain wooden picture frame, was sheet music, an ancient lullaby, "The moon always finds you." Puck printed neatly with the title written in pale blue ink. No announcement, no name, only gentle kindness. Caleb was about more often now, though not boisterous. Pocket. Sometimes he arrived early to tighten a loose stool or adjust the lights. Other days he sat by the window with a sketchbook, drinking coffee as if watching the world. He never made speeches, but Elena saw the little things. He always brought an extra pastry for the grease-stained hands of the mechanic. Pocket. He spoke softly to the boy in headphones who never raised his eyes. And every week he asked Elena if her grandmother needed anything from the shop. No announcements between them. That no admissions. But something was happening. Slow, quiet, like music played pianissimo. One afternoon while Elena cleaned down the espresso machine, Caleb passed by and left a mug beside the sink. Her customary hazelnut latch still warm. On the side of the cup, written in black marker, was a small heart and a music note. Puck neither said it, but when she turned, their eyes locked and held. That night, when the last of the customers departed, they stood side by side behind the counter. Outside, the snow glimmered gold under the street lamps. They said nothing. Then Caleb leaned up softly and rested the blue ribbon in Elena's hair where it had begun to come undone. His fingers touched hers only just. The motion was still, but it spoke. Elena didn't wince. She smiled. Some things didn't have to be said out loud. Some stories weren't spoken in words. They were written in silence, formed by small actions, exchanged glances, unspoken heat, the trust of being there. And here, in the golden haze of the kind cup, that kind of music at last had a place to play. A year later, the kind cup was more or less a legend in Portland. It was tucked away on a residential street, no longer merely a cafe. Pocket, it was a haven where kindness was on the menu, and people left feeling lighter than when they entered. Sunday afternoons were open music Sunday. Anybody could do: students, Pocket, retired teachers, the quiet child who once just sipped cocoa and hummed. The dream wall was now crowded edge to edge, dreams piling up like ivy. Most were directed to Alina. Her grandmother continued to attend dialysis 3 times a week. But her energy had come back. She spent a lot of time at the cafe, usurping the seat by the fireplace and calling Caleb, Pocket, that fidgety man who's always moving furniture. Her permission had come quietly, as most of life's truest moments. One golden afternoon early in the fall, Pocket, the cafe awakened with hushed anticipation. A scrawled notice at the register said, "Kindness has a soundtrack, a night of music and memory. Elena," in a pale blue dress that harmonized with her ribbon, was opening and playing. When she settled at the piano, the cafe fell silent. Even the milk steamer fell silent. She performed the Kind Cup Sonata, the music Caleb had once offered her. Now it had softened, filled out with crescendos that soared like morning sun. Pocket, amber light streamed through the windows. Caleb stood at the rear watching, hands crossed still. When the final note died away, the room broke out into applause. Pocket, a few wiped tears from their eyes. Elena rose and bowed slightly before she left the platform. Caleb met her halfway. He didn't say a word at first, just gave her a small wooden box. A carved music note was on the lid. In it was a small silver ring with a pale blue stone, the same shade as her ribbon. Caleb didn't go down on one knee. "Pocket, I didn't come here to run anymore," he said quietly, his voice steady but determined. "I came to stay if you'll have me." Elena looked at him, heart pounding, her voice trembled slightly. "Pocket, I believe I'd been waiting for somebody bold into my life with a cup of coffee." She nodded. Caleb put the ring on her finger. No one applauded. There was no spotlight. Pocket, only warmth and quiet understanding. 2 individuals choosing each other softly. Later that week, things at the cafe returned to its rhythm. Espresso steamed. Pocket, the bell ringing above the door. The wall of the dream expanded. Behind the counter, Elena and Caleb worked together. He spoke little, but always searched for her first. Pocket. She laughed more readily now, and still secured her hair with the same ribbon. Over the fireplace, a framed drawing, a blonde child offering a steaming mug to a man in a frayed coat. Pocket, below it, embroidered in fine thread, were the words, "Love begins with a cup of coffee and a look without judgment." The last instant came one still morning. The cafe door opened to a burst of cold air. Without seeing, Elena extended her hand and grasped Caleb's hand. He squeezed her softly. The screen went black. The final message appeared. "Pocket, kindness does not only save others, it saves us too." If this story touched you, a memory, a hope, or just a quiet reminder that kindness matters, then you're in the right place. At Soul-Stirring Stories, we believe love often begins in small, unexpected moments. If you want more tales that lift your spirit and warm your heart, Pocket, subscribe and hit the hype button to support the mission. Your support allows us to continue telling the stories that whisper truth and beauty into the noise. Until next time, stay kind, stay human. We'll see you in the next story.